So far, we've built out the basic structure of our game. We've got some enemies there, and we need to be able to check to see if collisions are happening between the different elements on the page. I'm going to remove out all of the console messages. So save that so we don't have an overwhelming number of console messages, and we just want to simply detect if there's a collision taking place between the two elements, so the enemies and the current car. Creating a function. We're going to create a function to check to see if it's collided. Call it isCollide, and we're checking to see element A versus element B. First, selecting our bounding client rectangle of A, using the same function that we used earlier, where we get the bounding client rectangle. That will give us all of the parameters that we need in order to detect that collision. And next, we can do rectangle and set that to the same thing, where we're getting the bounding client rectangle method. So now we've got the overall top position, bottom position, right, left position, and we need to make a determination if there's any overlap. So we're returning a value, and we're checking to see if the overlap is positive, and if it is, then we're going to be returning back a value of false, but we want to show a value of true. So checking to see, and that's why we've got that negative there, to negate the true and turn it into a false value if there's no collision, and if there is a collision, then we're going to return back true. We need to check all of the corners. So taking a rectangle and the bottom corner, we're going to check to see if the value of a rectangle bottom is less than the value of B rectangle top. So that's going to check the top corner of rectangle B, bottom corner of rectangle A. And so we know that if those are matching, we also want to check to see if there's an overlap rectangle top, and if it's greater than B rectangle bottom. So that's going to take the other corners, the opposite corners, and check those. The other condition that we're checking, so we need to check the left and right position. So we're checking the top and bottom values to see if there's any overlap. And next, we're checking the A rectangle right position, and this is the opposite of the top and bottom. We're going to do the horizontal positioning and checking to see if it's less than B rectangle left. So see if there's any overlap there. And then there's one last value that we need to check to see if there's any overlap. So we need to check to see if rectangle A's left side is overlapping rectangle B's right side. Let's try that out, and we need to send over those values. And we can do that as we're moving the enemy. So we're looping through all of those enemies, and we can also get the car value that's available here. So passing in the car object, so we don't have to select it again. We're going to take that car value and make use of it within our loop here. So passing over those values, we're going to check to see if car and if item, and if they are colliding, then we're going to output in the console. So we see that once they're overlapping, we get a hit displayed in our console. And if there's no overlap, then we don't get anything. So now we know that we are able to detect the collision. And this is the collision on each and every one of the enemies. So it actually doesn't matter which one we're hitting. We're always getting that collision. Because we do have that bounding box for the car, and we also have the bounding box for the item. So once we have a collision, then that's where we need to stop the game and show the player that the game has been stopped and that they've hit and made a collision. So coming up next, I'll show you how to do that. So go ahead and add in the collision detection into your application using the get bounding client rectangle and checking the horizontal as well as the vertical top and bottom positions of both of those elements on the page.